become who we want to be as individuals, and at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
So you can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is Jon. I'm joined by my co-host Mark. We just wrapped up, to date, the best week of football that we've seen all season. Everybody with the wild card matchups gets just, a little bit antsy about, lots of blowouts. Some of these teams don't deserve to hang. Instead, we got 4 super good matchups in this divisional round. A lot of exciting stuff with this game and lots of stuff to talk about. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm ecstatic. I'll be honest. I can't, as a Lions fan, we never really thought that we'd be in this position this soon. You can look back. This podcast is only 2 years old almost.
Yeah.
And you look back at some of our early episodes and some of the takes that we had, and you look at how quickly it's changed just as a culture, as a team, as a city, really. It's wild to look at the 4 teams in the Final Four and see the Detroit Lions in there. A lot of people saw the Ravens, maybe not preseason like John here. He had some takes that have aged very well, but most of the season, you'd expect the Ravens to be there. The Chiefs, a lot of people counted them out through midseason. I never wavered. I said they'd be right where they are. And then, of course, the Niners, everybody expected them to be in this position. So very excited to break down this weekend's games, to look ahead. This should be an awesome episode.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for it. And same thing. Just seeing the Lions where they're at right now is incredible. And I think what it's done for the city's been awesome. And it was really cool because, I show up to a Midwestern bar in Austin called Haymakers. They just were like the staple, kind of Midwestern, bar in downtown Austin. And so I'm like, okay, cool spot to go see the Lions game. I get there 45 minutes early, and there's not a seat inside of this bar to sit down. It is hundreds of Lions fans. We actually watched it outside in 35-degree weather. So I got the full, watching a Michigan football game experience. It was insane. The Let's Go Lions chants, everything. It was incredible.
They're truly America's team. And, for the Cowboys fans out there, I'll have you know the Lions just reached an NFC championship game before you guys did in this
century
drought.
Yeah.
And we've officially taken over the title of America's team. So
I love
Dallas Cowboys fans can cry all they want, but that's called karma. And
our next guest will have opinions on the Cowboys as well as opinions on the Lions' next opponent, the 49ers. I'm very stoked on this guest. So right now I'm wearing some Silent Planet merch rather than a Lions jersey, and it's because we are going to bring on the vocalist of Silent Planet, who's currently on tour in support of their newest album, SUPERBLOOM, which was my album of the year. It's an incredible album. If you are into metal, you should definitely go check it out. But Garrett is also a huge Niners fan, and so I thought, what a better excuse to bring him on this week than to come talk about, them crushing Green Bay's hopes and dreams like they have the past few postseasons, and then also look ahead to this game. Like clockwork. Garrett, how you doing, bud?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. How has the travels been so far? Your guys' first night is tonight in Portland, right?
Tomorrow, but we are rehearsing we're at the venue currently, just getting all ready. But tomorrow night's the first night of our tour. It comes through Detroit. It goes through Texas. It goes through the places you're mentioning. I do have an issue with calling the Lions America's team because there is a team in the NFL that has so many fans that they actually outnumber their home team in half of the games this season. I was at one of them in Jacksonville where there was more. I think it was just about even Niners and Jags fans when the Niners put an abrupt stop to the Jags. At the time, the Jags were, I think, 8-3 or something, 7-3.
Yeah.
They had a great record, and after the Niners, they were not the same team, and that can be said of a lot of teams this year. The Eagles completely fell apart after the Niners. I don't think any team hits like the Niners hit, and I think you see that reflected in the statistics. That being said, the Lions might be the next hardest hitting team. It's going to be an amazing matchup, and I'll be honest, I think the Niners will win, but if they lost, I think I could live with it because that would mean Detroit going to the Super Bowl, and that's just, I think, a special thing for all football fans. So
Yeah, well, I appreciate.
I'm happy to see Detroit there. Now, Green Bay, that would have just been Green Bay or the Cowboys. You never want to see those teams win ever.
No.
And
one thing's for sure, America's team is not Dallas. That's one thing that's for sure.
No. Yeah, that's the Life Alert team. They just choke on they're chokers. And yeah, I mean, you know, as a Niners fan, we hate the Cowboys and the Packers because Brett Favre sent us packing pretty much every year in the 90s. And before that, it was the Cowboys in the early 90s and the 80s. And so
You've had
those
the
are kind of
opposite effect the past few years.
Yep,
It seems like it's automatic now that the Niners are making it to this NFC Championship game, usually besting and crushing the hopes and dreams of either Green Bay or Cowboys the past
I will
few
say
years.
Green Bay was the better team the other night. Green Bay outplayed the Niners for the most part, and the Niners really got lucky getting that win. I think it's kind of not a bad thing though, because a win like that makes everybody. They kind of in the film room, it's going to be a loss, you know. So they're going to be really hyped up. I think they were kind of rusty, and obviously losing Deebo Samuel in the first quarter is never what you want to see.
Yeah, there was a lot
that happens. You know, he does get hurt, so you can't say it's not luck. It's bad luck because he does get hurt. But yeah,
there was a lot of criticism on Brock Purdy too, right? Like I think a lot of people kind of went from, you know, the game manager conversations got super loud. What are your feelings on him as the 49ers quarterback? Because obviously there's drama there with Trey Lance, Jimmy G. You've had a lot of different faces. Does Brock Purdy feel like the guy to you to actually kind of manage like all the talent around him in this offense?
Absolutely. He gets the ball out on time and he's accurate. And in Shanahan's West Coast system, that's 90% of what you need. Not to mention he's shifty. He's not the fastest guy, but he avoids sacks very well. He's not Jimmy G. Jimmy G was kind of feet planted.
Statue.
And statue. I do think Brock Purdy's the guy. That being said, he really struggles in the rain. And I believe this game comes down to if it rains or not. If it rains, I think the Lions win. And if it doesn't rain, I think the Niners win. Obviously, there's a million factors, but that's where I'm going to put it because I think it's hand size. Like, he really struggles to throw in the rain. Like, if you saw that Ravens game, and actually, there was a play. Did you see this against the Packers? He dropped back, and literally mid-drop back, he wiped his hand and got the ball and threw it again. And he's really uncomfortable in the rain. I don't know that it's hand size. I've never measured the dude's hands, but I know that that's often a
He
factor
did measure small
in the
hands
rain.
at the combine.
Did he? Yeah.
He did.
And because I know there's having an extra, inch or half an inch, I think makes a big difference when it comes to gripping the ball and feeling confident about it.
Especially when it's slick. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's tricky because I know he had the glove and he didn't like it. I think he's going to have to start learning how to throw with a glove because I just think his bare hands don't really work well with throwing the football. And it's unfortunate because it leads to a lot of criticism that is somewhat out of his control. People are like, throwing picks, he got flustered. It's like, no, I think dude is like struggling to hold the ball physically, Yeah.
Is there any concern? I mean, the Packers, obviously a different team than Detroit, a younger team, a team that just kind of randomly got hot. Jordan Love, a very different quarterback than Goff. But a lot of the things that the Packers did to expose the Niners on both offense and defense, the Lions also have strengths in those categories. Like, for example, running the ball. Like, Detroit is one of the best running teams. Stopping the run. Yeah. Detroit's one of the better run-stop teams. So it's going to put pressure on Purdy, and it should put pressure on the Niners defense. Does that concern you at all, seeing those comparisons?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I will say though that the Green Bay's running game, I think in the last few games has been the best in the NFL. Like I mean, it's incredible. Did you see that? That was the first game in, I believe, 52 games the Niners have given up over 100 rushing yards, which is a crazy streak. It's a 3-season streak. They have not given up 100 rushing yards. I mean, is it Aaron Jones? I think
Aaron Jones, yeah.
Yeah, he was just coming. He was like a freaking cannonball coming out of there, and I think that mixed with the rain, making it hard to catch him when he shifted, and I think also just having they kind of had 2 weeks off. Some of those guys, I think they were a little rusty. So I do think the Niners will do better at stopping the run. It's still a tough run game to stop, though. But I do think I feel like the Niners would be in a bit of a better place. I think when I think about how they got lucky in winning that last game, I think it's going to show up probably number one as far as I think the defense with tackling, as well as I think our defense gave up some big pass plays because of the rain. And I know both teams play with rain. I just think you do get a little spoiled when you're in San Francisco. You don't have as many elements constantly as you do if you're like playing Lambeau Field. So I'm curious to see where that goes. Detroit's used to playing in a dome. Is that right?
That is true, yeah. But we do play the NFC North, which is Chicago and Lambeau twice a year.
Yeah.
I think weather's supposed to be decent for the game. One thing that I think is a really critical matchup, honestly, is Brandon Ayuk. And I've been saying this dude's name for 3 years, but this year he is totally broken out, and I think has come on as a solidified wide receiver one for the Niners.
Yeah.
And the Lions tend to struggle with whoever the main wide receiver is for the other team, because our coverage isn't super great. We've struggled with our cornerbacks. Do you think he's kind of like, a pretty critical matchup in that situation? And then on top of that, like, let's say there are elements, right? Like, do you trust Purdy to actually be able to kind of make some of those huge completions? Because like I do. Getting beat over the top and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have that faith if weather permits, it's not raining. I do think he'll make some great throws. I think Jared Goff's playing really well right now, and you have to get pressure on him. And our D line was really suspect against the Packers, which is just crazy. I don't understand that when you have Hargrave and you have Bosa on one side and Chase Young on the other side. I don't know how you're not getting in the face every time. I know they were rushing for a lot of it, and I think ever since the Niners lost Hufanga, they don't do as many of those safety blitzes. Because I think they've lost that with Hufanga. However, I do think their secondary coverage has improved a lot over the course of the year. So I think it'll be vital that the Niners are able to pressure Goff, because if you give Goff time, he's a pro. He'll pick you apart.
Yeah, I think the Lions having one of the better offensive lines too,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a good thing to note too is, you mentioned the 49ers coverage, right? They're one of the better cover teams on the back end in the NFL for sure. And it helps that they're able to normally get pass rush. But when they saw Green Bay's offensive line, who was playing like one of the top offensive lines, like you said, they did struggle to get pressure on Jordan Love. The Lions' offensive line, although it is kind of beat up with Jackson probably out and Ragnow banged up, but still one of the better offensive lines. It'll be interesting to see, because I think that, Ward, I think, is one of the best corners in football. Every time I watch that guy play, he impresses me. But like you said, with Tufanga out, and then the safety play for San Fran has been questionable, and that's where Amon-Ra is going to be most of the time, is slot lined up on a safety. So I think Amon-Ra could have a very favorable matchup most of the game. And, I think especially when you get down to these championship weekend games, like, it's, matchups are where you got to look at, consistently they're going to attack those guys. I don't know. I think it should be a great game. I think 7 points is a pretty heavy spread there. I mean, do you think that they're worth the seven's fair? Or do you think it should be higher?
I don't think I should be lower. It should be closer.
It surprised me because I think it opened at 6.5 and it's already moved.
Yeah, no, I think you're seeing a lot of bias there, especially just like I do think the Niners will play better, but you kind of got to judge a team by their previous game, and they they were definitely the worst. They looked like the worst team to win in the divisional round of the, I'm willing to admit
I'd
that.
have to agree to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty shocking to me. I actually didn't know that. If you would have asked me, I would have guessed it was 3 or 4. So
yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I get it. I mean, big home field advantage and all that. I think like one last question I have, and I do kind of want to talk about, the success SUPERBLOOM has had and things like that. If you want to chat music a little bit.
Yeah.
But as far as the Niners go, right? The NFC North Championship has been both this almost seemingly automatic game that the Niners seem to get to under Shanahan, and also like this wall that they just cannot get over, where they have ran into these struggles. Eagles game was really rough the one year.
Yeah,
like how
didn't
do
have
you
a quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Like really unlucky. What do you feel like the Niners need to do to finally get over that hump in this game? Is there anything?
Christian McCaffrey, they need to establish the run game. They need to trust that Christian McCaffrey, and if Debo's healthy, just keep it, let Brock Purdy start throwing as he warms up and feels comfortable. You can't hang the game on Brock Purdy. He's just not that guy. He's a great QB1 for us, but I think they need to establish the run, and they need to do some creative Shanahan stuff. I think on defense too, I think they have a bit of it, maybe an advantage, having Shanahan knowing Goff so well and having played against Goff so well on the Rams and really dominating the Rams. I feel like that could work in our favor. On the flip side, though, the Niners again. I mean, they cannot play like they did last week against Green Bay. That won't work. So. It's going to be a good game. I'll be honest. I don't even have to watch the Baltimore Chiefs game. The Ravens are going to smack them. The Chiefs are not.
I agree.
This is not the Chiefs team. Like, I think they've already outperformed themselves getting to the AFC. But I mean, the Ravens are the best team in football, and I don't think you can argue that right now. The best team doesn't always win, but I do think they're the best team in football right now. I think they've earned that. And I think the Ravens are going to smack the Chiefs. However, I think this Lions Niners game is going to be the one to watch. It's going to be fun. And, like any football game, probably come down to turnovers, but it's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, Mark and I have been hotly debating KC and the Ravens really the entire year. I think Mark.
You think KC's gonna go?
I said about 8 weeks ago that Kansas City was going to represent the AFC when everybody counted them out. And John said that the Ravens would. I don't know if you called the Ravens Super Bowl in our preview episode, but you definitely said that they were legitimate.
I said they were going to win a very hard division, and they were going to look the best they ever have, because they solved. I mean, they've been struggling with just having Lamar click with their offensive scheme and their receivers the past 3 years. They finally fixed that, and they just look unbeatable now because of that. So that was my whole thesis, and but Mark's right with KC,
I just think Mahomes is Thanos. I just think he's inevitable. It's just like, just when you think that the Ravens are the best team and everything points to them dominating a Chiefs team that's like doesn't really feel like they should be there, Mahomes does what Mahomes does, and that's
I hope
goes to a Super Bowl.
I hope so, because here's a guarantee: if the Niners meet the Chiefs again in the Super Bowl, they will smack them. Now, if the Niners meet the Ravens in the Super Bowl, God help us. And of course, we got to beat the Lions first, and I'm not counting them out, of course, but just saying if.
Yeah, but no, I mean, the Ravens are the only team this entire season that has really embarrassed both the Lions and the Niners. I mean, I think both teams look good in every game they played, just win or lose, and the Ravens look dominant. So, Mark, I apologize, but I do have to pivot real quick to SUPERBLOOM. And the reason why is because I've had the privilege to speak to all three of your bandmates about kind of putting the record together and the process and the style change. And I do have a couple questions for you in specific. Silent Planet had a pretty big genre evolution with this record, both instrumentally and lyrically. What kind of brought that on, and what kind of sources of inspiration did you lean into in order to, maybe find that new lyrical approach, that new, singing approach, some of those things that are totally new to Silent Planet on this album, at least, outside looking in the creative
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. I mean, I guess starting with like big picture conceptually, and it's kind of a link to this discussion about the Niners, because it's inspired by NorCal, actually north of the Bay Area, up in like Humboldt County, but just a very mystical place, the Lost Coast, something that most people never really get to see in their lifetime. But I encourage everyone to see it. It's just kind of its own thing. It's a forest right on the Pacific Ocean with crazy rock formations and some of the oldest trees on the earth, and just a beautiful place that has a lot of paranormal events throughout history and a lot of interesting lore behind it. I think as far as the musical shifts, I think we started listening to a lot of different experimental stuff. I think there's other heavy bands that even did it before us. I can think of like the band From Joy, bands who really were mixing in like drum and bass with metal, and just a lot of different. So us just like, kind of taking a note and be like, yeah, let's mix in some of our kind of non-metal influences. The band Health for sure. Just it's fun to kind of play with industrial samples with metal. And I think as far as singing goes, I've always wanted to know how to sing, and it's thanks to my vocal teacher Melissa Cross. I started learning how to sing, and for a long time I was self-conscious about it because I grew up in like a very sports environment, and my dream was to play basketball for the Lakers my whole life. So all I ever did was just practice basketball, play basketball. That was my whole life. And then so I started very, very late in music, in adulthood. And I was I never thought I'd be able to sing because I wasn't like a choir kid growing up. I wasn't raised around it. And my teacher helped me to find my voice. And my friend Rory, the singer of Dayseeker, was actually the one who told me, he's like, you don't have to have like the best voice. You just have an interesting voice. And he's like, you have kind of a weird voice, to like use it, to like lean into it. And it is true. People always say I sound like a surfer stoner or something. And it's like a low voice with a lot of croaking in it, sort of. And so learning how to like sing and kind of create like a character within my voice was a really fun process. And our producer Dan Brownstein did an amazing job, and our Buster Odeholm mixed the record and made it sound like a car's crashing every time the guitar strings are hit. So it made it just sound over the top heavy, and it's just fun. It's cool to work with so many talented people, and like anyone in a sports interview says after every game, it's a team effort, because it is. It's like there's so many brains that go into the process, and it's cool to share it.
Yeah, Antimatter, definitely, which I know that song is about that insane van crash that you guys were through anyways. But that first, you talk about guitar string sounding like a car crash. I mean, that first drop that hits in that song, that's exactly what I thought of. And I'm a huge Phil Jarta fan. So to hear
I love Phil Jarta.
His creative input on your guys' music, to me, like, was the best thing ever. Like it was like listening to my two favorite bands collaborate with one another. So
oh man, that's awesome.
Absolutely love the record. Super excited to see you guys when you come through Texas. And again, by the time this episode's out, it will just be their first night of tour. So definitely go make sure to check out the date, see if they're coming to a town near you.
Come hang out. Yeah, if the Niners lose, make fun of me, and if the Niners win, you owe me $5.
And talk shit about the Cowboys regardless, because
yeah, that's right.
Anyways.
We're all no. I find it, unless if someone's a Cowboys fan, I can like find a commonality in hating the Cowboys with them. And I mean, for the Lions, I'm excited for them. I watched that Barry Sanders documentary the other day, and that was fun because I've always felt, I think anyone who grew up in Barry Sanders era felt like, I mean, there's just I think he's the GOAT of football, like personally, because I don't really as much measure it on like how many Super Bowls did you win, because and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but just personally, I'm like, if I had to start from scratch, who's my first pick? I'd take Barry Sanders. You can't tackle him. Like he was like a human cheat code, and imagining if he would have been like imagine Barry Sanders on this Lions team, or imagine
Right.
Barry Sanders on this Niners team. Like, dude's winning a bunch of Super Bowls, you know?
Yeah, he was special. And honestly, like even though they play different positions, I've said this a few times, Debo, the way he runs reminds me of Barry.
Yeah.
Like it's like I get like flashbacks to the highlight videos that I grew up watching because he's so elusive. He feels
Yeah.
like he's impossible to tackle. He's always taking the right angle. I love watching Debo Samuel play.
He's like
football as
Barry
well.
on like human growth hormone.
Right.
Such a strong person. Like,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times you're watching Niner games and the guy who tackles Debo gets hurt.
Yeah.
Just because, like, dude is a freak of nature. But
Yeah.
on the flip side, you know, it's hard to stay healthy, and I think sometimes it's just because he's so hard to take down. He takes like 5 times more
He fights
hits than
for
other
every
people.
yard. Yeah,
He fights for every yard
To his own
and
detriment at times, potentially.
yeah.
Thanks a ton for coming on, Garrett. This was a ton of fun. Do you have a score prediction going into this game for Lions Niners? And then we'll let you go here.
Oh man, yeah. I'm gonna go with Niners 30, Lions 28.
I like it. Thanks a ton for coming on, Garrett.
Hey,
Safe
thanks for
travels
having
for
me.
your tour,
Thanks,
and good luck tomorrow.
Hey, appreciate y'all. And win or lose, I am very happy for the Lions. Truly, if the Lions go to the Super Bowl, I'll be rooting for them. Like I've been saying all year, I'm like I'm happy, I'm stoked about the Lions. Truly, so you know. For all those people, you know, that are like plotting my demise because of my predictions, just know, hey, you know, I'm with you. Lions are great. Just gotta rep my team.
Hey,
But we'll
I've
see.
always had a ton of respect for the Niners. They're one of my favorite teams to watch, not named the Lions. So you know, this might be the first time in a long time I'm actively rooting against the Niners because I think they're mutual.
No,
It's
same.
really awesome.
I've always been rooting for the Lions, man. Dan Campbell's very inspirational. So we'll see what happens. But thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett. Talk to you
Appreciate
later, man.
y'all.
Peace.
Bye.
Dude, it's awesome because like Garrett always has caught me by surprise because I've had a couple sports conversations with him. There's one Silent Planet show that I watched where I had a Saints hat on, and like he said, he grew up playing basketball, and so like it's hilarious because like you know he's musician metalcore guy that I've known for this long time, and then he'll like fire off like a super like niche like sports take on Twitter that maybe me and 3 other people out of his thousands of followers actually understand, and I'm like, I really appreciate that. Like he said on Twitter, like happy inaugural Cowboys choking the playoffs day for all that celebrate. It's just like it's freaking awesome. And yeah, it's like, you know, I love like bridging that gap because there's so many music fans out there that are super passionate about sports and don't have an opportunity to talk about it. So again, that was Garrett Russell of Silent Planet. Their album SUPERBLOOM came out late last year. It is phenomenal. They are on tour right now. So if you're into metal music, make sure to go check them out.
Yeah,
Mark.
That was awesome, dude. A lot of time people don't realize that everybody loves sports. Like, if you don't like sports, you're a very, 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 very small minority. Like, it's just, especially football in this country, like, everybody cares about it at least a little bit, and most people care, especially about their team, a lot.
It's a cultural epicenter of the United States. I've made this argument before that, like, COVID was just bearable enough during football season that it like kept us from like going into a civil war. Like, I swear to God, like that was the thing that everybody was like using to you know, like stay mentally sane while being cooped up for that entire year. And honestly, you look at what the city of Detroit is doing right now with
dude,
like
football can transform a state and a city.
It looks like a totally different city right now. The way people are treating one another and just like all the camaraderie that goes with it. Like, it is a special sport. And yeah, it was awesome. Thanks a ton, Garrett, for coming on. And now we have recapping in more, you know, depth the past 4 games of this weekend, which I would say all of them were incredibly exciting. And then obviously looking ahead to the NFC and AFC championships coming up here. Mark, are there any like news events that you feel like we need to cover, or are we good to just kind of hop right back into this?
I mean, no. I mean, I think they go hand in hand with the games. There's definitely some sidebar stories with each of the games to talk about, but
Sure.
I think we get into the recaps because breaking these games down in great detail is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best part about there being only 4 of them is that we have plenty of time to chat about each one of them. And I am stalling a little bit because I realized I didn't put the scores on the graphic. So thank you, Mark, for buying me just enough time to get these scores up before I share.
Anytime John
That's great.
starts talking
I really
with like
appreciate it.
his elongated talking like that, you know he's doing something on the side because he's got his dual monitor set up, and you like every time you can tell he's
Dude,
doing
but where
some kind of,
would practice squad be without my dual monitor setup? Is the question.
dude, trust me, I'm gonna
Yeah,
get a
it's
dual
different.
monitor set in when I move in, and then we're gonna be dualed up, both of us. We're gonna have quadruple monitors.
I'll help you build out your whole PC setup and everything. Make sure you're officially which I mean the microphone upgrade was really all we needed, but now shit, we can get you a little bit better setup. Congrats
Yeah,
on the
for
house
sure.
by the way. When's the move-in date?
Mid-February. I don't know the exact date yet.
Gotcha. Well, hey, that's coming relatively soon, so that's exciting. All right. First things first, Texans versus Ravens. Personally, this game kind of went the way that I thought it would. Mark was correct. The Ravens had some rust to shake off in the first half, and you could tell, man, because Houston hung in there. Obviously, halftime, it's a tie game. And then there's not really a ton of information on it, but apparently Lamar had a speech at halftime. And it was like a jaw-dropping, fiery, maybe mildly insulting to the Texans kind of speech. And this Ravens team goes out there, and the Texans do not score another point the rest of the game, and they just absolutely dominated them. This is kind of what I expected from this game. Shout out to the Texans for the season that they had. I think they're going to be a wagon in the not-so-distant future here, but this is the Ravens' year, in my opinion. They look phenomenal this game, and I think that both offensively and defensively, they are the best team in the NFL right now. I think they look the most complete on both sides of the football. Mark, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, my rust versus rest take was right, but my overall take, I thought that rust would last longer than it did. Offensively, the Ravens' second half, they put it together. Pretty much the whole first half, the Ravens' offense was washed up. Right, didn't look right. Everything was off. Timing was off. Lamar was off. Pressures, right, protection scheme was off. The Texans, give them credit, they hung in there, but one thing that was never rusty, the Ravens defense. The Ravens defense allowed 3 points. The touchdown came from a punt return. Right. So, and that's against the Texans offense that dominated a good Cleveland defense last week and looked pretty much unstoppable the last 5 or 6 games of the regular season. So there's no doubt this Ravens defense is a problem. And the Ravens offense figured it out in the second half. And they're a very, very good football team. I don't think you can argue that they look the best in the NFL right now. But like Garrett said, the problem is the best team at the moment, at the current moment right now, does not always win. And once you lose and you're eliminated, you're not the best team. So right. If Baltimore does lose, then all of this credit that we're giving them will go and be forgotten. I do think Lamar probably stamped his MVP thing this weekend. I know it's supposed to just be judged on the regular season, but Josh Allen losing pretty much crushed the only guy that could compete with him in that race. So congrats to Lamar Jackson on his second MVP. And if he finishes this season off with a ring on top of it, he gets put in a very, very small list of quarterbacks, and he's still pretty damn young. So as many negative takes as I'll have on Lamar, and there are plenty more coming, he's going to be in a pretty tough list to debate. But credit to the Ravens, man. They looked good.
Yeah, good season if your last name is Harbaugh in general. That entire
the year of Harbaugh.
For real. I mean, it might just be that as much as I want it to be in some regard, but man, I was even going into this postseason, and we'll get there. I was like, if the Lions get a playoff win, I'm going to be in great shape. And now it's man, we've made it this far. Can we start saying the word Super Bowl yet? Because I feel like we're
no, not yet.
Point. Okay,
not yet.
We got one game left, and then we
don't say that. Don't say that word, John. Not yet.
I know. Okay, Green Bay at San Fran. This game was crazy because, as Garrett alluded to, 59 minutes, Green Bay was the better team. I would argue. I think they had a more dominant looking pass rush. Their run game was better. Their offense was running more efficiently. Special teams, they obviously had a huge play there that led to a touchdown. They just looked like the better team. Brock Purdy looked like he was really struggling with their pass rush. Obviously, Garrett mentioned at length how bad the rain was affecting him, which that was definitely accurate because he just seemed off on where he was placing the ball with his weapons. They weren't really able to get the run game going as much as they can, but they hung in there and they hung around. And for the first time in the Shanahan era, they are down in the fourth quarter and they actually come back and win the game. He is now 1-30 when they're trailing in the fourth quarter. Crazy statistic. Mark, how do you feel about this game? Because to me, it's like, man, Jordan Love is the guy. Like, I think Green Bay solidified that with this playoff run, that they have a lot to be optimistic about. But man, that's got to stink so bad for LaFleur and gang, because you had it. You were right there, and you just couldn't pull away at any point in the game.
I mean, 10-point underdogs going into San Francisco. Nobody really thought the Packers could win that game. I mean, people like you and some others said maybe, they'll cover, they'll keep it relatively close. They're playing well. I thought the Niners would kick them in. I thought it would be a blowout game. Jordan Love was the better player the entire game, except for that last interception. And really, you can link it just to that missed field goal. I mean, you give a team like San Francisco any little bit of a window of momentum, and that's all it takes, right? Because it's very hard to create your own momentum, especially in like a big-time game like that. And when you've had the momentum the entire game like Green Bay had, and then you blow a 30-yard chip shot field goal, and all of a sudden it's like, we can go down and win the game with the touchdown here. And that's all you have to say if you're the Niners and you have that offense with that offensive mind calling your plays. I don't care who the quarterback is. In that situation, Brock Purdy turned it on. And you can talk shit about Brock Purdy all you want, but when it matters most, he has risen. He's risen to the occasion almost every single time. There's an asterisk next to a couple games where he hasn't. But for the most part, he has gotten the job done for them in big moments. And when it mattered most, he drove his team right down the field. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, you can lean on him a little bit. Debo, Kittle, like the weapons are all there. And this is a dangerous team. It's absolutely a threat to win the Super Bowl. They have been all year. A little up and down, which is unlike the Niners, I'll be honest. They had that 3-game losing streak in the middle of the season, and they've looked a little rough since that Baltimore game. But here they are in the NFC Championship game like everybody thought they would be, and they're one win away from competing for a Super Bowl. So,
Yeah, and the Brock Purdy hate, like, the things that people are saying about him is, and you've made this comparison before, are so reminiscent of Tom Brady. It's not even funny. It's like, oh, like he's a game manager. He's got a great offensive line. He's got one of the best tight ends in the league. Look at all of his weapons. All he has to do is dink and dunk down the field and make the right read and whatever. And it's like, yes, all these things are true. I'm not going to sit here and argue that with you. However, that's exactly the situation that Tom Brady was in offensively his entire career. And are we taking 7 Super Bowl victories away from him? No. So I don't understand what the argument is, because clearly Shanahan struggled to find that guy to dink and dunk his way to victory every single game. Like he
doesn't
there.
Dink and dunk, John. He statistically
he
statistically throws the ball downfield more than any quarterback in the NFL. He averages more pass yards per attempt than any quarterback in the NFL, and he has a good completion rate. Like, that story's a myth, that he's a dink and dunk guy. It's a myth. It's a flat-out lie that you're told, because he doesn't necessarily look like he's slinging the thing around. He is absolutely one of the best down-the-field passers. A lot of it is because of scheme and because of having a strong running game, similar to like what Jared Goff does, right? Like, you have a strong running game, it sets up the pass. Every quarterback benefits from a strong running game. And Lamar benefits even more because he is also a threat to run the ball.
He
right?
is the strong running game.
Yeah, so like there is a lot of benefit to that. And
right.
I mean, if you really think about it, every team you're seeing on the screen here, every team that was in this, Final Four, that advanced to this Final Four, has a running game. Like that, you don't get here without it. It's just every single year you have to have a pretty good defense in stopping the run, especially, and then you have to be able to run the ball, and that's the formula that will get you a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. And the Final Four teams all do that.
Yep. No, I completely agree. And again, like for you to not for you, for haters on Twitter to use that as a knock against Purdy. It's like we're in the business of winning games here. You're trying to say that all the other NFL players that are around him on this NFL team are really good, and that's a knock against him. It's like he still has to run the freaking offense.
So this will lead us into our Chiefs. Or do you want to do the Lions first? You want to save that for last?
Yeah, we'll go in chronological order. We'll touch on
Okay.
Lions Tampa here. Look, shout out Baker Mayfield for what I mean. Honestly, some of the completions he made this game. Shout out Mike Evans. Holy shit, the dude looked phenomenal. Their offensive line hung in there a lot better than I thought it would. They were able to establish a decent running game against the Lions. And defensively, man, I mean, those linebackers and that interior defensive line up until the fourth quarter looked great. So Tampa, like, legit, nobody counted you to make it this far this season. You looked like shit at the beginning of the season and have slowly just clawed your way into being a really dang good team. This was not the same Tampa that the Lions played in week 4 or 5 or whatever it was, and that clearly showed in this game. With that being said, this game, because of that, gave me the confidence that, hey, we can go to San Fran and win it, because you're not going to see a defensive line on the interior better than the Lions just had to deal with. And I thought they handled that incredibly well.
Specifically in stopping the run.
Yeah, stopping the run. Not only that too, but I mean in pass pro as well. Like Goff had a lot of pressure in his face. That's been his Achilles heel as a quarterback for years now. And I thought he got that checked out and it was always there for him when he needed it. Their run game is the best in the NFL. I feel like I can confidently say that. I mean, Gibbs to tear those runs that he had in the second half of the game. Not only did that win us the game, the fact they're doing that against Vita Vea and company, Kalijah Cansey, those linebackers is crazy. Like Tampa has not been ran on like that pretty much the entire season. Love the Craig Reynolds touchdown too. Get him in there, confuse them, and just run it directly at Vita Vea.
John, can I pause you on that
yes.
tape? So, and I'll do I don't know if you've seen film cut-ups or if you've seen it on Twitter last week in the Rams game on the 4th and goal, we went to that heavy personnel package, which was the same thing where Craig Reynolds, 3 tight ends, got, an extra lineman, and they shifted to that spread and then threw the touchdown to Laporta. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Same personnel goes in on 4th and goal against Tampa. Tampa studied it on film. They're thinking, oh shit, here they are trying to trick us, do some kind of shift. They do the same thing, and except they just hand the ball to Craig Reynolds. So they led you to believe that Craig Reynolds only goes in to help pass pro because he's very good at it. And then they just hand it to him. You would think you would keep Montgomery or Gibbs in to, your top two backs by a mile, but no, you hand it to Craig Reynolds. Like, that is just offensive beauty. But go ahead, continue.
No, I mean, I think you're totally. And by the way, the setup before that was very similar to the play that they ran against the Rams. I texted you about it when it happened. I was like they're setting up something incredibly similar here. And then I think it was incomplete to Laporta on that play. Same formation, like they're running the same trick over again. And like you said, Craig Reynolds straight into Vita Vea basically for the touchdown.
Ragnow with a one leg trying to fight.
Well, so it turns out medically, right? Like he comes back in the game. He had a sprained ankle and a sprained knee and finished the game. That is the toughest freaking dude in the NFL. He has been dealing with injury. He's permanently injured. His foot is inoperable. He has and so like once a week he just takes a day off of practice because he's always not feeling great. And he just pushes through the pain and finishes the game. And like that is everything about this team is so Detroit mentality, Detroit grit. Like you see why these guys are willing to freaking run through brick walls for one another. And then I think the other thing that I'll say is, well, Sutton lately I think it's harder and harder to make excuses for the way he's getting burned by the other team's wide receivers. I do think in totality, the secondary is playing better, and I think the Lions' pass rush has improved significantly, and that gives me confidence going into this Niners game. So that's kind of where I'm at with hats off to Aaron Glenn, right? In the playoffs, he's held both teams to 23 points. I mean, if we can hold the Niners to 23 points, I think we got a freaking chance. I'll say that much. So
we challenged Aaron Glenn right around the end of the regular season that if he doesn't figure his shit out, this Lions team can't contend, right? Offense is doing their job. We can run the ball. We can throw the ball. if you can't improve your defense, because at that point we were getting run on, we were getting thrown on. Like, we didn't have a strength. So he committed to stopping the run. Once we got good at that, then he started to get a little bit of pressure on the quarterback to help our shitty secondary, which there's no doubt about it, we can't cover. We're not good in coverage. None of our defensive backs are good in coverage. Not even CJ, not even Brian. No one's good in coverage. They're great tacklers. They're great around the line of scrimmage players. They can blitz. They're okay in zone coverage. If you have them in man-to-man and you don't get pressure on the quarterback, guaranteed it's going to be a positive play for the offense. That's been the problem that we've seen for the last 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. Why that, that happened the entire game. So I don't really, the Sutton stuff, he was on an island with one of the better receivers in football, probably a future Hall of Famer, Mike Evans. That is a tough ask for anybody. We didn't get pressure on certain plays, and give credit. Like, everyone can hate on the Lions and Sutton specifically all they want. Give some credit to Baker Mayfield. Like, Baker Mayfield was throwing dimes. Like, it wasn't like Mike Evans got wide open every time. He was making stuff happen, extending plays. It's very hard to cover a guy, but let alone let Baker Mayfield extend a play, and now you have to cover that guy for double the length of time. Not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to it's not realistic to think that that's possible. Nobody in the NFL can do that. And so give credit to Baker Mayfield. He played his ass off.
It continues to be mind-boggling that Cleveland walked from him to go sign.
Baker's overcome everything that's been thrown at him as a football player. I mean, walk on, doesn't get a scholarship after starting as a walk on his first year there, first walk on and only walk on in college football history to start his first game at a college, right? So he was in camp for probably 2 or 3 weeks and ended up starting. That's unheard of. As a former walk-on myself, that is unheard of. Like, you don't even get opportunities to do that. He must have played so well early on and been so college ready. I mean, I can't even think about how much he had to impress to be able to get that opportunity. And then he gets all the way up to Heisman, number 1 pick, and then he wins a playoff game for Cleveland, which a few years ago, you look at that, like, that would have never happened. It was similar to Detroit. Cleveland winning a playoff game, that's never happened in our lifetimes. We'll never see that. And Baker does it in his, second year there? Yeah. And then you just ship him off. And so the guy's just been shit on his entire life. No one ever wants to believe in him. The few people that have reaped the benefits. Look at Lincoln Riley. Look at, some of the coaches he's had at Oklahoma and what they've done. And now the Bucs have that opportunity, man. And they play the Lions tough. The Lions, I think most people thought should win this game easily or relatively easily for a playoff game, and the entire game they just never went away until finally the Lions committed to the run. I will say, I don't know what it is with Ben Johnson right now, but the cute stuff's got to stop. Through the third quarter, John, and I tweeted this out on our Twitter, there were 9 rush attempts.
Right.
Midway through the third quarter.
Yeah. 9.
We have like you said, and I agree with you, we have the best 2 running back tandem in the league. We have a top 2 offensive line in the league. And I get we're going against a good team that stops the run, but enforce your will. Like, that's who we are. That's our identity. You cannot rely on Jared Goff to sling the ball 40 times and consistently win playoff football games. He's not mobile. So, like, if you get pressure, if you throw something, he's going to take a sack, and that kills a drive. So to not set up play action, to be an open where there's no running back next to him, I don't know what Ben Johnson was doing, but that was not the offense I'm used to seeing. It worked because Tampa couldn't figure out how to cover the simple dig route and a simple curl dig and have the linebacker take the short route.
Drive, holy shit. Laporta looked so good that one drive.
And that's great and all, but 9 rush attempts through 3 quarters of football. That can't happen. That won't work.
Same thing. But I think Johnson convinced himself a little too much that Tampa was going to be able to stop it, and so he was afraid to really lean into it, because the second that we were like, this is our identity, lean into it, we pulled away very quickly. And I know. Agree. I think hopefully that's a lesson.
That was the change. That was the change in the game. I mean, once we started running the ball, I mean, it wasn't like they were stopping us. We were averaging 5-6 a carry. Yeah. So it's like, I just don't know. I had confusion about it. I mean, especially some of the red zone decisions, John. Like, we were on the 3-yard line, 1st and goal, and we throw it twice out of 4 downs. It's like, dude, just run it 4 times. You're gonna score. Like, I don't get it.
I've said this so many times. If you are inside the 5-yard from the end zone and you have 2 or 3 downs, Look, it sounds insane in most other situations to just hand it to David Montgomery up the middle 3 times. I guarantee you, if we have 3 downs, that is going to go 5 yards.
Yeah, and then
eventually.
if you consistently do that, and a team does commit extra people to stopping it, then you have a very easy play action. But when you do like play action two out of the 4 times you're in the red zone, you choose to do play action first.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, the play calling was not up to par, with what I've seen from him in his tenure in Detroit. So he needs to definitely figure it out and get back to what we do. Otherwise, we will not compete with the 49ers. It's just a simple thing because Shanahan's not going to outsmart himself. Shanahan's going to do what they do, and he's going to do it well. We have to match that, and then we just have to have maybe a turnover or something go our way. And like you said, I do think that game is within reach. I really do, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing I'll say on this before we move on to the other super incredible highlight game of this weekend. I just have to say again, the Lions rookies. I mean, you talk about win or lose this game. The runs that Gibbs had, Branch with multiple coverage situations, a sack. I mean, the pressure he had, even in the run game, he was great. You talk about Laporta injured, still able. He had a driver that Laporta had 3 straight completions. I think 2 of them were 3rd down conversions. Incredible. And Jack Campbell, a guy that doesn't get talked about a lot about. I think he has the 2nd most tackles on the team still. I mean, his ability to find the right people for this team and plug them in. I mean, the amount of rookie production we have had over the 3 years in the Brad Holmes era is ridiculous. And then you talk about Aiden Hutchinson, who I know started slow this season, but finished the season with 11.5 sacks, has been getting above 8 pressures for both of these playoff games, which is insane. Multiple sacks as well. This team their young talent is ridiculous. It has to make you feel good about where we're headed in the future because these guys are locked in for the next few years with us.
The future is now, John. We're locked in right now. We can talk about the future all off season, but let's finish the damn job here. All right. I don't like hearing future conversation. Not yet.
Speaking of being able to finish the job, the Bills cannot beat KC in the postseason. And to some degree, I always feel bad for Buffalo. Their fans' enthusiasm is amazing. You just kind of want to see Josh Allen be able to get this monkey off of his back. But this game to me was just holy shit. It's right there for you guys. It
always is.
Gifted. In this situation, the Hardman, which I have to I think it's this. Yeah.
I was tweeting about this live.
This is the
he's
stat
worse.
line.
He's worse than Tony, and he's worse than Kadarius Toney. He is not nowhere near the player Kadarius Toney is. You can hate on Tony all you want. He's nowhere near the player. Nowhere near. Not as good of a route runner. Doesn't have the same hands. Doesn't have the same separation ability. Doesn't have the same after the catch ability. He's nowhere near the same player. So once Tony gets healthy, expect Mecole Hardman to be right back out of it.
Yeah, and so the reason I show that is because Hardman fumbled into the end zone, gifting the Bills a
on
possession.
1st and goal. First time.
There were so many opportunities for the Bills to really pull away here, and they did not take advantage of it. And I don't think this time it was on Josh Allen. I would be the first person to be like, oh, Josh Allen was playing reckless, blah, blah, blah. I don't really think that was the case this time around. I think Josh Allen played a pretty clean game. I just think cohesively the team did not rise to the occasion in the moments that you need to against Kansas City. You have to in order to
John, what did the Damar Hamlin fake punt remind you of?
Oh my God. That was so good.
Dan Campbell, right? It's dumb shit like that loses you a game. You're the better team than Kansas City. You have been for the last 10 weeks, without a doubt. Buffalo's favored in the game. You're at home, and you do some bullshit act of desperation like that. That was it. That was right. And I get that Kansas City didn't capitalize. I get that 3 plays later, Hardman fumbles into the end zone on 1st and goal. But if the Chiefs score there, which 90% of the time they do, this game's over. They go up 10 in the 4th. It's over. Right? Yeah. So the Bills, you could talk about their opportunities to separate, but the Chiefs had plenty of opportunities to separate as well and make this score much, much bigger than it was. Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. Why do we have this why do we even have this debate, John? Why do we even when you laughed at me when I said that the Chiefs are going to figure it out, and I mean you're not the only one. You read the comments on the post that I was making about it.
Let's pull it up.
Everyone's laughing. Yeah, play this.
I got to stop sharing real quick so we got the audio. 1 second. Sorry.
This was, I think, 7 weeks ago, by the way.
Put me all you want. Bookmark this and come back later if I'm wrong, which I don't think I will be. But the Chiefs will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl this year, and they'll most likely be playing against the 49ers. They have drop problems. Mahomes hasn't looked the same. Kelsey hasn't looked the same. The reality of the situation is simple. If they fix the drop problems, if the chemistry gets better on offense with the receivers and with Mahomes, if they continue to grow their running game, if their defense continues to play the way that's been playing, this is the team that's going to represent the AFC. I don't trust the Dolphins. I don't trust the Ravens. There's a lot of, the Bills could be dangerous, but there's a lot of these mediocre AFC teams that are fighting to get in. And these Chiefs I just am not going to bet against Mahomes. Bookmark it, come back later, make fun of me all you want, but the Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl.
A lot of bookmarks on that. I'm going to run this back so we can take a look at some of the comments. And you can see, as much as I hope this is to be true, don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's their year. Defense can't hold teams the whole game. And there's people that did agree with you. And, I think there's a lot of KC fans showing up and saying, man, I hope you're right, but I don't think you're going to be right. But, I think a lot of people bookmarked this with the idea that they're going to come back after KC loses and talk some shit. And that has not happened yet. So,
John, let me read you something too. Okay.
Hold on. This is an all-timer right here. Oh, wait. Hold up. I stopped sharing again, didn't I? Brutal.
Is this Mahomes?
No.
Let me do my Mahomes-related stat, and then you can do... I know what you're going to pull up. So let me do my Mahomes stat first, and that is the stat I'm going to read, actually, that you just pulled up. So you got 13 playoff wins. He's not 30 years old yet. 13 playoff wins for Patrick Mahomes. No one's ever done that before. He's undefeated in the divisional and wild card round. Let me say that again. He's never lost a divisional or wild card playoff game. All right? He's been a starter for 6 seasons now. 6 starting seasons, 6 straight AFC championship appearances. Every year he's been a starter, he's gotten to the semifinal round of the playoffs. He took a team that had the highest wide receiver drop rate since the 0-16 Browns.
That's the most insane stat.
To the AFC championship game. There's nobody in the same realm of him. You can talk about Burrow, you can talk about Allen, you can talk about Lamar. Nobody is in the same realm as this dude. He's on a place of his own. He is on the trajectory to catch up to Tom Brady, and it's not crazy to say that. It's absolutely not crazy to say that. This guy just does things that we've never seen besides Tom Brady. And every time this guy's an underdog, he's 8-1 as an underdog, flat out. 8-1 as an underdog. The guy doesn't lose. When this guy's an underdog, it's laughable because he really should never be. It's like the Michael Jordan, Tom Brady effect. Like this guy changes spreads of games because of who he is. If he wasn't on the Chiefs, the spread of this Ravens-Chiefs game would be 13. It's 3.5. It's just that's the factor that he has. This Ravens team looks better in every single measure that you can find, and yet here the Chiefs come, and they're a game away from going to the Super Bowl, like I said 8 weeks ago. And the reason I had that take is because this is what he does. He just finds a way to win games. It wasn't always pretty. The things that I said happened. Kelsey figured it out. The drop problems are better. Rashee Rice became a legitimate receiver threat for them.
Rashee Rice.
And that's all it took. The defense has done their job, stayed good all year, right? Spags threw a lot of confusing things at Josh Allen, held the Bills to 24 points, right? You're not going to shut down Josh Allen. You're not going to shut down Lamar Jackson. But what you can do is limit him, force him to do a couple things that he wouldn't normally do. And that's all it takes when you have this guy at quarterback on the opposite side of the football. So the Chiefs are very dangerous. If you're a Ravens fan, you shouldn't feel great about it. You should be worried.
And then
Jason Kelsey.
I mean, dude, happy retirement. That's all I got to say.
He's not retired officially yet, John.
Not officially. You're right, but I think that's what's going to happen. He is a staple of the NFL that I think people didn't talk about enough until the Kelsey started getting obviously a lot more attention between their podcast and Taylor Swift. This dude, hammered, jumps out of a suite, chugs a beer, introduces a little girl holding a sign to Taylor Swift behind her, and then verts himself back into the suite. I mean, dude's a legend. I think everybody should try to live their life as as Jason Kelsey attempts to live his life.
How many people can steal the show from Taylor Swift? There's no one.
Man.
There's no one that can.
This man right here.
I mean, not only that, but if you're a Bills fan, like, it's bad enough having Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's bullshit come into your stadium and beat you. And Kelce had 2 touchdowns, played great. Like, that's bad enough because he's done that to you before in the past, and now he brought Taylor Swift with him. Now he brings his brother with him doing this, shotgunning beers with the fans. And, like, I mean, that if you're a Bills fan, the Kelce's came in and robbed you blind. They took everything you've ever dreamt of and wanted, and they walked in and they just said, yeah, we're better than you. I would hate the Kelce's. If I'm a Bills fan, I would hate the Kelce's right now more than any. If they did that to Detroit, if they walked into Detroit and did that, I could never forgive them.
It is unreal, the mojo that those two brothers have around them this season, especially, but really in general. I mean, the podcast, the sexiest man vote, obviously Travis dating Taylor. Like, there is something around the Kelce family that is probably impossible to replicate. Probably should be studied by scientists. Anyways, we're going to move into these matchups, assuming do you have anything else you want to say in reference to the KC Bills game? Because I think I said my piece on it.
My last piece is that those two quarterbacks playing each other head-to-head is as good of a game you'll ever see. The way that they do unorthodox things so casually. Like, they make crazy things look normal. Nobody else in football does that, really. Not even Lamar, not even Burrow. Like, they do things, and I'll have film breakdowns coming this week in short form, like, all over the place. Like, because there was 3 or 4 alien plays of the week from those two guys alone. The no-look passes, they play the quarterback position like they're playing point guard.
That deep ball to Diggs that was just perfectly
80-yard bomb.
Yeah.
80, like, I've never seen anyone in a shitty weather game like that throw a ball that far, and it was perfect. It was perfectly placed. He's got to catch it. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about, like, on 3rd and 16, you scramble, you cross line of scrimmage, and you laterally throw it. Again, another lateral, and almost get the first down. And then you do get the first down the next play because it was 4th and 2. You quarterback sneak it, and you get 7 yards on a quarterback sneak. The guy's a freak of nature. I'm talking about when he scrambles and he's attacking the quarterback spy, and when he commits to him, he just no-look zips it out to the running back like he's playing. He looks like Rajon Rondo, the Boston Celtics. Like, he's playing point guard. Mahomes a couple times, the pump fake that he had on that quarterback scramble left the guy just stuck there. Like, they just do things that you just don't see quarterbacks do ever, and when you see them go head to head, it's must see. It's must watch TV. It's the two. I think it's the best quarterback rivalry we have seen since Manning Brady, and I think it's going to be that way for a long time. And we're blessed to have it.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. I mean, and like you said, like, every game they match up,
every game
feels like a classic. So, heading into championship weekend, man, I do think we are currently looking at least right now, like, the 4 best teams in the NFL. KC maybe didn't start that way, but really, I mean, they are playing clearly some of the best football in the NFL. Unseating the Bills is no easy task, especially at Buffalo. We have 2 incredible matchups coming up here, and I think people are not giving enough credit to the Lions. Obviously, Mark and I are biased, but to assume that San Fran's just going to blow the Lions out, that spread obviously suggesting something in that vein is crazy. I think that San Fran showed a lot of weaknesses that the Lions will exploit coming this week. But let's hop into KC Baltimore first. Obviously, a very limited number of best bets that we could take. Are we allowed to start parlaying it? Like, can we take 2 best bets?
Are you trying to catch me? Because it's never going to happen, John.
It's not going to happen. I'm just asking.
You can do an over under and a spread. You can't parlay it, but you can put them.
What? So if I parlay it, it doesn't count as 3?
No.
All right.
Hell no. And trust me, you don't want to do that because then you're gonna crush your record's gonna go downhill.
I'm just messing around, anyways.
Parlays are traps, dude.
KC at Baltimore. I'm Mark. I think you know exactly what I'm gonna say for this game. I think Baltimore's defense is gonna be good enough, and I think Baltimore's offense is gonna play how they've played, and I think they are going to win this game. KC looks a hell of a lot better. Mark was 100% correct on that take, but I've been on the Baltimore wagon since early this season of them being the best team in the AFC, and I am going to ride or die with it. I think this team will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
I could see this game going either way, but what I refuse to believe is that the Ravens will cover. So give me the Chiefs plus 3.5 in my best bets. Much like last week, would not be surprised to see Patrick Mahomes win this game. In fact, I think he will win this game. And it's a simple thing of you're crazy to think that he won't do it again. Every time you think he won't do it again, he does. He rips your heart out. He ruins it for every other quarterback in the AFC, just like Tom Brady did to Phillip Rivers and Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger for all those years. All those other really good quarterbacks, they just never get put on the same level as Brady because he was ruthless and he ripped your team's soul out every single year. And that's what Patrick Mahomes is. This is the year the Ravens think that they have it in the bag. They've thought that for a while. Ever since that Niners game, people like John, Ravens fans have been talking, this is our year. Lamar Jackson, right? All this, whatever you want to say. And everybody forgot about Mahomes, and he is on a revenge tour, and you do not want to wake up someone like that. And unfortunately for you guys, he's awake. He just took out Josh Allen in Buffalo, and he's coming to Baltimore, and he will do the same thing. I don't think it will always be pretty, but what I think the difference is, John, is Lamar Jackson. What the Chiefs are going to force him to do is be more of a pocket passer, which all year Lamar's been able to do. But what Lamar hasn't seen is a secondary that moves around and changes their coverages and baits quarterbacks to throw it in certain places to create turnovers like Spags does. And we saw Josh Allen struggle with it a little bit. We did a little bit of film analysis on that last week in our episode. I think they'll do similar things, and they'll find ways to kind of contain Lamar Jackson and not allow him to get going. And that's all it's going to take is one mistake from Lamar, because you know Mahomes isn't going to make as many mistakes, and he's going to capitalize if you do make that mistake. So I strongly advise people not to go heavily on the Ravens here, which right now I'm looking at, a little between the lines preview, as I'll do that again midweek, but people are betting on the Ravens, and you gotta be careful.
I was about to say, if it was -3, I'd say take it.
It opened at 3. Yeah. It opened at 3, and it's moved to 3.5. And what that normally tells you is
3.5.
People are putting money on the Ravens, so they had to shift it. You just can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. I mean, this is just the same. Like, if you've ever seen the stat, John, if you would have bet on Brady in every game money line in his career, how much up you'd be units wise.
I assume it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, but we're living in that now. It's just with Mahomes. Right. So capitalize on that. He doesn't lose often, especially as an underdog. He's 8-1 as an winning outright, not covering, winning outright as an underdog. He's 8-1.
It's probably a pretty good passive income stream is to just bet KC money lines all the time. I mean, as long as they finish with a winning record, you'll end up, right? So
I mean, as long as they're not underdogs often, so the odds aren't always great. But
right,
as long as you're smart about it.
And then Lions 49ers, and look, we've previewed this a couple of times throughout the episode. I think the Niners showed their hand on how they can be beat this past week. Kind of in the same way of Bosa saying, "Yep, here's the formula for beating the Eagles. Have at it." And it comes down to this. Can the Lions generate a pass rush? And it has to be a fast pass rush because Purdy gets the ball out quick. And can the Lions stop the run? I think that is incredibly... Those two factors... Are they going to get some big plays? Absolutely, especially against our secondary. I have no doubt they're going to get some big plays. It's about limiting those and containing their run game so that they have less opportunities to go and let things fly like that. And then offensively, honestly, I feel good. I think we will get a run game established. I think that the offensive line is fine in keeping Goff nice and comfortable against that pass rush. And I think our receivers are more than good enough in order to be able to handle their secondary. So to me, I like the Lions here. In fact, I like the Lions getting 7 for my best bet as well. I don't know what the score of this game is going to be. I don't know who's going to win it, but I do like the Lions keeping it close.
The Niners should win this game. Make no doubt about it. They have the smarter coach schematically, without a doubt. They've been here before, so they're more comfortable. They're expected to be in this position, and the Lions are not. They're more experienced than Detroit at pretty much every position aside from quarterback, and they should be the team that represents the NFC in the Super Bowl. If you would have asked anyone pretty much this entire season, that's who it would be. 7 points is a lot, though. And like you mentioned, John, I want to point out some matchups like you did. Jahmyr Gibbs is a mismatch nightmare because what San Fran does, you are going to ask a linebacker to cover him. And if there is a linebacker in this league that can cover him, it is Fred Warner. I just don't think that he can. I don't think he can keep up with Jahmyr Gibbs. That's a mismatch. That's a win to the Lions, right? The other thing, like we talked about with Garrett, is the safeties for the Niners aren't great in coverage. Their corners are good. I don't expect Reynolds to have a big game on the outside. I don't expect Amon-Ra to have a lot of outside the numbers catches, but over the middle of the field, Laporta and Amon-Ra, I think could rip the Niners apart. If you put a linebacker or a safety on those two guys, they're going to get open, and Goff is great over the middle. Like, that's play action dream, right? So that's a huge favor in favor of Detroit. Now, unfortunately, the same thing goes for the Niners on offense. Our secondary stinks. I mean, they're just not good. Our linebackers, I know you say statistically they're okay in coverage. None of them can cover McCaffrey. If Debo plays, none of them can cover Debo. Yeah. And
I wouldn't lean on statistics with those two guys. No.
And Brock Purdy, like, I know he struggled, but he's not going to see a more favorable matchup than this ever. Like, our secondary is terrible. Our secondary gets lost. Our secondary doesn't communicate well in pass plays, whether in zone or man. And I do think Trent Williams neutralizes Hutch, so Purdy's not going to be under a ton of pressure. The only way we get pressure is to bring an extra guy, and Purdy and Shanahan are just too smart, and they're going to scheme us up, and I think they're going to pick us apart in the secondary. So I do expect kind of a shootout game. That's what I kind of anticipate happening, and it's going to be, does Goff make the mistake? Does he take more sacks? Or does Purdy? Because I will say these two teams are very similar. Like I said, Trent Williams might cancel out Hutch, but guess who's going to cancel out Boza? Penei Sewell, right? So it's like your best pass rusher is pretty much neutralized on both teams. You have two offensive lines that can run the ball very well. You have two defenses that typically stop the run very well, and you have two teams that are probably up there at the top two teams in play action in football. So it's like these two teams are very similar, and so it's going to be like watching the same offense versus the same defense almost the entire game. Who's going to make the mistake? Who's going to slip up, right? I think I'd like it to be Purdy. I think Purdy has shown that he's definitely mistake-prone these last few weeks. He doesn't look the same as he did early in the season, and I think Detroit steals one. I really do. I'm not going to put in my best bets. I hope to God that my take is right here, but I think the Lions cover this spread, and I honestly think that the Lions win this thing outright, and you see a Super Bowl rematch of Week 1, the opening game of the year. I think you see Chiefs-Lions, both underdogs. It's an underdog weekend. That's what I think most people are probably rooting for Ravens-Lions because people are sick of the Chiefs and people are sick of the Niners, and everyone the Lions are America's team. No matter what Garrett says, the Lions are America's team. But I think the Chiefs and the Lions get it done.
He mentioned the Niners' ability to travel on away games, but
I don't think he realizes what's coming to town.
I was about to say, Detroit knows how to travel. I don't know if they're going to get priced. I don't know how hard Niners fans hang on to their tickets.
I'm assuming pretty hard.
Priced out, but I think there's going to be quite a lot of blue in that crowd regardless. Maybe not as much as, when that KC game or in New Orleans or whatever, but there will be a lot of blue.
John, everything points to the Lions have been great on the road all year. I know that we've gotten spoiled with a couple playoff games at home, and that's awesome, but the Lions have been great on the road. It has not been a problem. It feels like team of destiny, right? Like Michigan football just won the Natty. The Lions aren't supposed to be here. It just feels like you look at these teams, it's like, what doesn't belong? Right? Chiefs, defending Super Bowl champs, Patrick Mahomes, they've been here, done that. Ravens, MVP candidate, Lamar Jackson, have been dominating all year long, really haven't really wavered. San Francisco, we're in a Super Bowl a few years ago. They've been in the NFC title game, 4 the last 5 years. Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Shanahan. And then what doesn't belong? Dan Campbell in year 3, a Lions team that had 3 wins 2 seasons ago. Jared Goff, who everybody thought would, come here and suck. Another little hidden X factor too. Jared Goff, homecoming, Cali boy,
Yeah.
going back to Cali.
And he's played a whole lot of games against the 49ers as well.
Sure
too.
has.
That's important.
Sure has. He doesn't have D'Amico Ryans calling that defense anymore, so that should be a little bit favor. I don't know. I'm so excited because I think that these 2 games are both going to be great games. But these are just awesome matchups. Like, these are as good as it can get if you're a Michigan person, obviously, because you have the Lions and a chance to go to the Super Bowl. But this Chiefs-Ravens game is a great warm-up as well. The NFL somehow gets it right. The script always ends up being, like, best-case scenario. I will say this, too, about the Chiefs. They have Taylor Swift, and that's a superpower, that a lot of people thought wasn't a good thing, but it turns out it is. The Ravens have Kodak Black. Diehard Ravens fan, I'm sure he'll be there. So that cancels out, I think. I think Kodak is equal to Taylor Swift.
I will say this, too. The way that Detroit fame has showed up to Ford Field the past couple of weeks, really cool, man. Like, I kind of forget how many famous people are from Detroit. You had Jack White, Eminem, Kid Rock, Tim Robinson,
Ninja.
Like, it's cool seeing those kind of characters pull up to the games too. But yeah, this wraps up our divisional round breakdown, our conference championship preview, as well as a big shout out again to Garrett Russell, vocalist of Silent Planet, for coming on to the show. Again, it's awesome having a metal musician come on here and passionately talk about his 49ers teams that he clearly loves and keeps up with, with us. That was a lot of fun. And cannot wait to see these games on Sunday. I mean, I am so jacked up about both of them. You couldn't ask for a better really football season if you're a sports fan in the state of Michigan. You really couldn't.
John, last minute, I'm adding Lions +7.
Let's go.
Let's go. What am I? How many opportunities am I going to have in my life for the Lions to be on my best list to go to a Super Bowl? Like, I am. What am I, a coward? Like, I have to put it in here.
I love it.
I have to put it in here.
To everybody that sat along and watched this, we really appreciate you guys coming and checking us out. If you do not follow us on social media, please do so. We post short form content, film breakdowns, predictions, all of that good stuff throughout the week. We're obviously here for the long form podcast once per week. We have a merch store. It's got practice squad stuff and a line dedicated to the NFC North. We're going to look to be adding to that next season as well. And we really appreciate everybody's time and attention. Let's have ourselves an awesome conference championship weekend.
Only 3 games left of this season.
About to say, and
enjoy
it.
Championship Sunday. Championship Sunday.
Peace.
See you guys.